Hello and welcome to Learning with Lulu. In this video, we are going to be doing a pretty quick summary of chapter 19 in the Scarlet letter. Before we jump into it, I do want to apologize if I sound a little nasally or snotty. Time of year, I think I've caught something, so I apologize for that. And also, just want to remind you to show your support for the channel in all the usual ways, especially if by the end of it you have found it helpful in any way. So, with that being said, chapter 19, where we left off in the last chapter, Arthur Dimmesdale and Hester Prynne, who are the co-adulterers, I guess you could say, at least that's how the Puritan Society sees them. They are somewhat hatching a plan to run away as a family with their beautiful daughter Pearl, get away from this community, the judgment and criticisms that come with the culture that they live in. Hester has revealed to Arthur Dimmesdale, you know, your doctor, housemate, Roger Chillingworth, that's not actually his name, he's actually Mr. Prynne. He's my long estranged husband. You know, at first Arthur Dimmesdale was a little upset about her keeping that secret from him, but he kind of comes around and they're feeling excited at this prospect. And Hester has called their daughter Pearl to join them. She set her off to kind of play in the forest. That's what Pearl did, as her mother illuminated some key information to Dimmesdale, her dad. So in this, chapter 19 is Pearl being called to them. And Pearl is on the other side of this little brook, this little stream, and she doesn't really jump at this invitation to join Hester and Arthur, her mom and dad. And she definitely eyes them with a little bit of suspicion. Remember, Hester has taken off her Scarlet letter and cast it aside. Pearl, throughout the entire book, has been paralleled with the Scarlet letter in its beauty and in what it represents. Both what it represents in like a positive way and in a negative way. Obviously, Hester has turned it into a positive thing, but in the same way, the Scarlet letter is a signal to everyone else of what she did. So is Pearl. She is the product of intimacy between a man and a woman. Pearl's mother has now taken it off and cast it aside. And Pearl, I don't think has ever, okay, maybe she's understood that people look at the Scarlet letter in a degrading way. For the beginning of her life, remember, people did start to take it to mean Abel and see her almost like this angel of kindness and redemption. Even from infancy, Pearl was drawn towards it. Remember when she's by the ocean and Hester is confronting Roger Chillingworth, she is making her own little letter out of the emerald green seaweed. And so now her mother has thrown it away, let down her hair, is filled with this like vitality and passion. And so yeah, Pearl is suspicious. She doesn't really recognize her mother. So she won't come to Hester. She keeps on pointing at Hester's chest, which to her obviously is like empty. It's got this big void on it now. And she won't come to Hester and Arthur Dimmesdale, Hester Prynne and Arthur Dimmesdale, until her mom puts the Scarlet letter back on. So once Hester puts the Scarlet letter back on, Pearl finally comes across the water and embraces her mom, sits on her lap, and kisses her mom, who, you know, in putting on that Scarlet letter, it has, at least in the eyes of her daughter, and perhaps in her own eyes, in Hester's own eyes, realizing like, oh, I can't completely go back to who I was. Pearl is the absolute anchor in time for them and what has all transpired. And so anyway, Pearl kisses her mom, and she also kisses the scarlet letter on her mom's chest. So mother and daughter have had this little reunion. Mother had to revert back to the version of herself that Pearl was most familiar with. And then Hester tries to kind of coax, encourage Pearl to embrace Arthur Dimmesdale, her father. Pearl, again, I love this little character because I think she is totally validated in her response, similar to what she asked Dimmesdale, her dad, when they were all standing on that platform together where Hester had been condemned for committing the sin of adultery, and they were all standing there at night. Similar to that, Pearl asks her dad, hey, are you gonna take my hand and walk back into town with me? You know, are you, essentially she's saying like, are you going to own up in front of everybody that you are my dad? You know, I don't think Pearl is just asking this out of, hey, are you gonna humble yourself enough to own up in front of everybody? I think what is prompting this question from Pearl is, are you proud enough of being my father? You know, it's this, she's at an age where, you know, identity is forming.
Honestly, for everybody, I think identity takes a long time to form. And that's not to say that people's identity doesn't even change their entire life. But especially, you know, those first 25 years of life when the brain is still developing, the body is going through drastic changes, like identity is forming. And, you know, I miss the days when social media was not a thing. Because I think pre-social media, this is totally a tangent, but pre-social media, kids, adolescents, were able to shift their identity multiple times without it being this huge public thing. You know, it allowed the shifting and the transformation of identity to take place without this big public eye on the child or the teenager. I think that that was perhaps a bit healthier. You know, you don't get boxed into one thing, and you don't get into this echo chamber telling you what you are or what you should be, or based on this, you are this. You know, I regret the days when social media was not a thing, because kids need to be allowed to find their identity, but not be pigeonholed in it.
Anyway, so Pearl is at this point where I think she's asking and trying to figure out if she is valued enough by her father, who, you know, she's got to see it. She's got to see the whole community completely fawn over him and think he's this great guy. And I think she's trying to see, like, am I worthy enough in his eyes? And of course she's worthy enough. We know that. I hope you know that. That's how I feel. You know, we're all worthy of being valued and cherished. And I think she's trying to figure that out and see if her own father recognizes that. And he won't. He, in effect, is just, you know, no, I'm not going to walk back hand in hand with you. And so she is just like, okay, well, I'm not going to be cozy with you. Dimmesdale, he gives her a kiss on the forehead, and she does not appreciate that. And that same little stream that she crossed to come to her mother and father, she now runs to and attempts to wash off the kiss that he has just placed on her. You know, she is refusing, I think, what she feels is his false love of her. I think one of the major things that we can perhaps begin to analyze or begin discussions about from this chapter are people's identities. I mean, look at Hester's back and forth with identity in this. Look at Pearl and her navigating how her identity is perceived by not just some random pastor in her community, but by her father, by her mother, and Arthur Dimmesdale's battle with his identity. You know, we have these versions of ourselves that are seen by society, and we have these versions of ourselves that are seen by our friends. And, you know, I think the goal is to be authentic across the board, but in any age of history, there are going to be difficulties with that. You know, the version of me that maybe you're brand new to my channel, maybe you've been watching for a while, but the version of me that you see, my identity, it could be very close to the full authentic person that I am, or it could be lacking in a lot of elements that maybe I think are key elements and you don't, or maybe that you think are hugely defining, but I'm kind of like, oh, that's a minor part of my personality. You know, we're all just hopefully trying to be authentic and presenting truth to the world, but it's still, you know, it's still kind of this game. People don't want to offend others. People don't want to, and maybe people do want to offend others. You know, it's just, it's kind of a wild age to be living in, that we have, you know, these selves that are the physical, tangible beings in the world, and then the selves that are the online presence, or that even the ones that, like, the versions of ourselves that we fabricate in our head. And yeah, I guess I'm going through like a whole existential thought process right now. But let me know your thoughts on that, if you are relating at all to what I am saying, and any of your thoughts on how you kind of see that play out in the chapter, this social identity and this private identity that the three main characters in this chapter have, and how this chapter kind of critiques that and exposes that. So let me know your thoughts on that in the comments. Let me know if these videos are helpful to you. Let me know what you're using them for. Are you using them for your own personal reading? Are you using them for school? Did you read the chapter and then watch these to kind of help you understand what's going on? Or are you not reading the chapter and just watching these to, you know, get a quick catch up? I'm just curious, just let me know. And with that being said, I hope this is helpful to you. Please make sure to share with others that you know what may benefit, and like the video and subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you back around. Hopefully next time I won't sound sick. So, bye.